March, and this is Women's Month. And as they talk with Tariro, for this whole month, we are going to be profiling women, and we're talking about trailblazers. These are our living heroes. And to start off this series, we are privileged. We partnered with Net One, Your World in One, and they said, let's go out there and find women that have not been profiled. So we really sat down and said, who are the people that we are celebrating? But we also want to unpack their journeys, and not the journeys that we normally know. And today on the program, and it's our first time on this show, we have Ms. Harriet Rushwaya. She is a media and communication specialist, and she also happens to be the ZBC board chairperson, and in that hat she is my boss. But today we're focusing on the media and communication specialist. Welcome to the Talk with Tariro.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, people would want to know, who is Harriet?
Right, so my name is Harriet Rushwaya. I was born in Shurugwi. I grew up in Shurugwi. I did all my primary school in Shurugwi. Then we moved to Gweru. My parents moved to Gweru. I'm the fourth child, so I'm the last born in my family. And we moved to Gweru. I did my high school in Gweru. Then I left high school. I did Form 1 to 6 in Gweru at Thornhill High School, and moved to Harare. Went to college. I went to study mass communication, focusing in broadcast journalism.
At the Harare Polytechnic.
At the Harare Polytechnic. So I know it sounds really strange talking about primary school, secondary school, college.
Yes.
But up to this day, most of my really good friends, most of my support network comes from those 3 stages of my life.
From primary?
From primary school, high school, from college days. Yes. And so I think apart from family, that's my other family in my life.
Yes. Why did you choose to be a broadcaster?
I always liked television. So even when I was a kid, I would watch television, and I always wanted to read the news. But in the end, I never got to be...
That's what I wanted to ask. So did you read the news? So from college, what happened?
So I was in college 1992 to 1994. 1993, I did my internship at ZBC, News and Current Affairs, production assistant. I absolutely loved it.
You were working under who and who?
Lorraine Garwe, Robson Nkomo, oh gosh, yeah, and they were always doing, obviously, the news and current affairs, the live questions, the live shows, and I would run around with the notepad and with the water, and but then it was kind of like a promotion as a production assistant, because I would go and meet and greet the guests and sit on those couches with them, and that was so amazing. So, so yes, that was my first work experience in media, and that was at ZBC. So I finished college, and I moved to Namibia because I'd gone to college with a friend from Namibia, a she, and so moved to Namibia. Well, it wasn't really moving. We went on holiday. We went on a road trip. So actually we hitchhiked from Harare to Vic Falls, through Botswana to Namibia. And so yes, I'd gone on holiday and just didn't come back. I got a job with Women in Development projects that they were publishing a magazine, and they were also producing a weekly radio show. So I started helping out in the resource center, and then I ended up presenting the weekly radio programs.
In Namibia?
Yes.
Okay.
So then left Namibia, I late 1997, I was in the Netherlands. I was seconded to the Women's Global Network for Reproductive Rights. I was the African Network Coordinator. Wow. So trying to establish a network from Southern Africa and West Africa, the English-speaking parts of Africa. From there, I moved to the United Kingdom, and I lived in the United Kingdom from 1999, and I was there for almost 20 years.
What were you doing there?
So my first job was with an electricity meter changing company, and it was in the call center. Mostly with recent graduates, and we would call people, and we were not selling anything, which was good because I would have been terrible. I would be so embarrassed to sell anything. So it sounds like a mundane job. I absolutely loved it because I was on the phone, and most of the people who answer their phones during the day are retired or the elderly, and they have nobody else to talk to. So they'll start chatting, but for me, I learned about that region that I lived in. I used to know people. If I asked somebody where they live, say if it was in Zimbabwe, in Harare, for example, you say, where do you live? They say, oh, I live in Avondale. Oh, which road? And then I'll be like, oh, is your postcode this one? Because I learned, I was fascinated by the postcodes and scheduling. So I'd schedule times and distance and how many meters can be changed in the morning. So that was my first job. And then after that, there was a job that was advertised in the newspaper. They were looking for, it was for the Midlands Media Training Consortium. So they were looking for an administrator to work with the manager, and it was a small team. So,
all right, we will continue with our discussion after the break. I'm sure if you're hearing this story, where she started, this is a message to other young girls to say, you don't have to start at the top. Look where she is now. We'll continue with that journey. But it's always good for us to know where people started and where they then eventually become. Join us after this short break. Welcome back. We continue with our Women's Month commemorations, celebrations, where we are profiling. And we are going to continue profiling women who are making a difference in our communities. It's important that we get to know their life stories. And the media, whatever the post that was advertised.
Yes, so that was the Midlands Media Training Consortium, because I was in the region, East Midlands region of England, in the United Kingdom. So, so I got that job. I was so excited. We were working with freelancers who wanted to upskill, and there was a fund where they could apply. And then if you're a producer and you want to go on a production management course, or if you're a production assistant, you want to learn about budgeting or production coordinator. So that was the kind of thing. So again, that took me back to the media industry, media sector. So I worked there for probably 2 years, and then we merged with other organizations to become East Midlands Media, which was part of the Film Council, part of the UK Film Council, because they had regional agencies established, because the UK Film Council was based in London and they needed to have a presence in the different regions. So I started, we became EM Media, and I was initially skills development coordinator, and then I became skills development executive. But this time I was working with, again, freelancers or people who are working in either television, radio, television, film, and then there was animation.
Yeah.
It was called digital media, it was called new media, it was animation, and then progressed to games. So the East Midlands region also covered areas like Leicester, and at that time Bollywood was growing, and there was a relationship with Leicester. So we were also, in our team, we had the locations team, so they would be vying to have different films made in the East Midlands region, because that was key. If you get a big film, it's really good. The crew get work, the hotels get bookings, the restaurants get full for the duration, and also you get tourism, people the fans who are coming to see the celebrities in the region. And in terms of games and animation, the team that developed Lara Croft, for example, were coming from the East Midlands region at that time. I mean, that was it became quite big, because Lara Croft became a big game, and Grand Theft Auto also then became a big game internationally, but Grand Theft Auto was from Scotland, where I ended up after the East Midlands. So yes, I worked there until 2005, and then moved to Scotland. So before then I had a child, and so 2002 I took a break. You know, we take it for granted when you have a child that I think at the time maternity leave was only 3 months, but I negotiated and got 6 months maternity leave, and you know, in the UK it's different to here, because I always think people always say, "Oh, you just had one child," and I'm thinking, if I was here, I'd probably have like 7, but in Britain it's so expensive to raise a child. It's difficult to get childcare. So having one and not working for 6 months, you don't realize how much it affects your career as well, because you have the child, well, I didn't go to work, and then at 6 months he was in nursery. You come home, there's no, help is expensive, and
you have to do everything.
You do everything, and but the good thing was I learned how to sleep train. So my poor child at 6 months, he was sleep trained, would go to bed at 7 and waking up at 7. If he woke up early, I would just completely ignore him. But I think, so as a mother and trying to develop a career, it can be quite tricky.
Exactly.
So moved to Scotland, worked in my employer then was, we worked with a collection of colleges, and we started off with just colleges that, so you know, it's slightly different to here. So probably like Harare Polytechnic is for people who want to do hands-on crafts or hands-on careers. And if you want to do theory, you go and do your BA in media studies. If you want to be camera person, if you want to be an editor, the technical stuff, you go to college. So we were working with a partnership of colleges and the funding council, and also the broadcasters and the production companies, because we were trying to upskill. There was a skills shortage in the broadcasting sector and with the independent production companies. So they'd identified, every year they would identify specific roles that needed filling, where there were skills shortages actually. Or sometimes there'll be skills gaps where people have a skill, but they just need to upskill to learn a different way of a new software. So yes, worked with that. So I became the project manager for that. So working around Scotland, and so that was good because I got to learn more about the country. I got to work with different independent production companies, worked with the two major broadcasters in Scotland, were the BBC and Scotland Television, STV, and also Channel 4, because they were very big on new talent and new ideas, people coming into the industry. And also at that time, Britain was switching over from terrestrial to digital. So instead of just having the 5 channels that you used to have on television, then there was suddenly 30 channels, 60 channels.
Yeah.
So the demand for content was growing, and also equipment, broadcast equipment, was getting smaller and more affordable. So there were more people making content, which was brilliant. And so from Creative Loop, I worked there from 2006. Then we evolved and moved from the offices I was working at. I was part of Skill Set, which was the body responsible for developing skills in the media industry. So we moved to the BBC. BBC had just built the most tech and one of the most modern studios in Europe at the time. So they moved to a new building which was bigger. So we also moved, and we were working there because it was closer to the independent production companies that we were working with. Okay. We were with the broadcaster, so like right in the heart of production. So.
Yeah, we can hear the vast experience when it comes to broadcasting. After the break, which is our third and final segment, we would want to hear what brought her home to then say, I'm going back home. I'm going to contribute to my country. Join us after this short break. Welcome back. We are continuing with Harriet Rushwaya. So with all that glamorous career, what brought you back home?
So, you know, I always loved Zim, even though I was away. I left in 1995, and this was now however many years being abroad. I used to come home on holiday, and I would always extend my stay. I would always change my ticket no matter what, even by 2 days, but I loved it here, but I also loved it in Europe. So, so anyway, I was still in the UK. I just finished working on the Commonwealth Games in 2014, 2015. I'd now moved to live production, which is exciting, so much adrenaline. But then we had 2017, we had the elections. In 2018, new dispensation, and there was a new board announced for ZBC. Yes, so I was appointed on the board of ZBC, which was exciting. But also at that time, I was now starting to work more from wherever I was. I was traveling a lot with work, so I'd go where the work was. So it didn't matter where I was based. So I was appointed on the ZBC board in July, August 2019. We had our board meetings. We had a early 2020 March. I came back because we were having a board meeting end of March. And I arrived, and a week later, COVID lockdown. So
you were locked home.
Yes, I got locked in Zimbabwe. I mean, obviously there would have been that option to go back because there were flights that were open to take people back to home, or but also luckily we always had a second home here in Harare. So so COVID happened. I also had my ZBC board meetings to attend, but also at that time there was a change in management. So I was seconded from the board to the executive. That's when I became the acting CEO at ZBC, starting from April 2020 during COVID. You know, it was really tough. It was, and also because ZBC, your frontline, everybody was depending on the news, everybody was depending on information from ZBC. I mean, working with the other government agencies, Ministry of Health, the police, and raising awareness. You know, that's when I realized that the team at ZBC are so dedicated and resilient. There were very few occasions where people wouldn't pitch up to work because they were scared. People would always turn up, and people would always turn up on time. They would make do. They had to do longer shifts to, as opposed to doing 3 shifts in a day, you'd end up with one long one. And it still worked because everybody was, the listeners, the viewers were depending on the national broadcaster for information. So yes, so I ended up in that executive role, not for 3 months, not for 6 months. It ended up being over a year, a year and 2 months, and that was tough, but it was a good. It was a good experience to have. I learned a lot about resilience, making things up as you go, and
So now that you are, we can't finish the program without just congratulating you as well for becoming for being appointed from the highest office as the chairperson of ZBC. What can we expect during your tenure working with ZBC management, obviously?
Well, I guess, you know, our mandate, our core business, ZBC is a broadcaster. We still have some of the most popular radio stations in the country.
Popular TV station.
Yes, as well. I mean, and I think people don't actually know that apart from ZTV, there are 2 other television stations that ZBC are broadcasting, and 6 radio stations, 4 that are national. So I think ZBC is a national treasure, but also if anything happens, breaking news, to verify, people will always check on ZBC. So it means ZBC is doing something really good. Right now, as a board, our mandate is obviously to steer the ship, the national broadcaster. We have a brilliant board with different, coming with different skill sets, expertise, and the staff, not just management, but the whole team at ZBC. I think they're quite committed. They can make, I think together we can build a great corporation and make ZBC. We want people to be driving really quickly, to go home in traffic, because they want to watch. They should have their favorite program on television or radio. But radio is wonderful because you can listen anywhere.
Whilst in the car.
Yes, absolutely.
So as we wrap up, this is Women's Month. What is your message, not just to women, but to Zimbabweans when it comes to the role that women play?
Well, I think every month should be Women's Month, but I guess it's good enough that we have March, and it's a time to remind ourselves of the different, the hard work that women do, the different work that we do. Sometimes you don't have an even playing field. I spoke about having a child and juggling and going to work and not getting enough sleep. And so I think Women's Month is probably just a time, a month that's dedicated to recognizing the great work or great achievements. It doesn't have to be corporate. It doesn't have to be the highest appointment. But even the women that sell tomatoes, they're doing a great job. It's and raising families and mushamkazi and so I think March. Brilliant. We're being reminded, but throughout the rest of the other 11 months of the year, I think we need to to recognize, applaud, but also I think as women we should pat ourselves on the back and not be too hard on ourselves. If you want to have a lie down, just go and have a lie down.
Indeed. And I'm glad that you said we are not just supposed to profile and celebrate high-profile women. In the weeks ahead, like I said, this is Women's Month. We are actually going to be bringing these women from the grassroots to hear more from them, to celebrate them and acknowledge the roles that they are playing. Harriet, it was a pleasure to have you on the Talk with Tariro and for setting the scene on our celebrations and commemorations for Women's Month.
Thank you.
And special thanks to Net1 for supporting us to ensure that we are able to bring these exciting women and we hear these exciting stories. Your world in one. Until next week, it's goodbye.